Hey y'all, for today's tutorial I wanted to go over how I programmed the light show for the recent demo video that I uploaded to my Super Valid Designs YouTube channel a couple weeks ago, and if you haven't seen the demo video I'll paste a link to it in the description below. So for this demo I used the Touch Designer template that is available for download on pedallighting.com, and I had to make a couple small modifications and adjustments which I will go over in this video. I do want to mention now that I am still learning Touch Designer myself, as the software is immensely capable and thus very difficult to master. But if anything, I hope this video will show that you can get going right away using Touch Designer to program a cool light show without having to know everything about the software first. Now, Andrew and Austin, the guys that built the template, are very proficient with Touch Designer, and they will be making some much more in-depth Touch Designer tutorials for you guys soon. But for now, let me show you what I was able to accomplish on my own. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, Touch Designer is a visual development platform that equips you with the tools you need to create stunning real-time projects and rich user experiences. Whether you're creating interactive media systems, architectural projections, live music visuals, or simply rapid prototyping your latest creative impulse, Touch Designer is the platform that can do it all. Basically, this means this software can be as complicated as you need it to be, but as a guy that is focused on the hardware side of things primarily, Touch Designer would be a bit too daunting for me to get working with my light rig from scratch, which is why my friends Andy and Austin have put together the Touch Designer template that can be downloaded from pedallighting.com, which gets you past a huge bulk of the initial grunt work you'd need to do to get started programming your pedal light rig or any pixel LED lighting rig for that matter. Now, even with this pre-made template, the software offers you infinite possibilities for programming, but I wanted to start with what I thought was the most simple and intuitive method, at least for me, by designing an entire media file for my song and simply uploading the media file into Touch Designer and mapping it to my array of LED fixtures. So that's what I'm going to run through in this video today. And keep in mind, I might get a few of the specific Touch Designer details wrong, and I will probably learn better ways to do this in the future, but I wanted to make sure people felt comfortable jumping into this right away with minimal knowledge as I had to do. For you Touch Designer pros watching this, if I do get things wrong or am doing things in a super weird way, please let me know in the comments. So basically, for the light show I was planning, I had 8 fixtures, the 7 tube lights behind me, evenly spaced, and 1 main light source off to the side. For this light, I used my Cinepan 30s from my V2 video. The layout of the lights are actually pretty crucial for programming them, so I wanted to make note of this right off the bat. You could say I'm setting the stage for the rest of the video. Inside Touch Designer, when you open up the pedal lighting template for the first time, you will see this control panel page, which is where you will find everything laid out in a way that is really easy to understand. I do know Andy and Austin are working on improving the UI currently, so if you are watching this video in the future and the template you have doesn't look the same as this, the basic concept should still be close enough to follow. Here you've got the inputs, external inputs for things like media files, audio files, or devices, and MIDI, as well as the internal inputs, like these constant and ramp nodes, which are internal effect generators built right into Touch Designer. For this video, we will focus on the external inputs as we will be putting our final media file here. The next panel shows the input processing, which includes an audio analysis node, so you can adjust and pinpoint specific frequencies of the audio you may be feeding the project, as well as a video switcher, which gives you easy control to switch between your various media files. But for this video, we won't be focusing on this, as we will be working with just one file. If you are planning on putting a full light show for multiple songs together, this will be a much more important panel, so just something to keep in mind. The next panel is the effects panel, which lets you add effects to either your external or internal visuals. And this is something that for DJs or someone wanting to design light shows on the fly, these built-in effects will let you do so many cool things live. But like the last panel, we won't go into these today as we will want to work with an unaffected media file for our show for simplicity's sake. Next, we have the Pixel Mapper node, which is key to making sure your media file maps to your specific light rig properly. Like many nodes on this template, if you zoom into the Pixel Mapper, you can see all the individual nodes inside of it, which do all the magic. And like I said, I'm not a master, and this really does look like magic to me, but Andrew and Austin have put in a ton of work to make this function the way that it does, and we will make sure to put out future videos that will go over all of this. You will need to be familiar with a couple nodes inside the Pixel Mapper to properly set up your fixtures, so let's take a look at that now. First and foremost, you want to tell Touch Designer how many fixtures you have, how many individual LED segments there are in each of your fixtures, and how big and where your fixtures will be located on the stage. So to change these parameters, just right-click on this node here and select View. Now we can start to input our specific values. So in my case, I have the 7 tube fixtures on channels 2 to 8, which all have 17 segments each, and we actually put 17 pixels as the default here based off of my fixtures, but yours will probably be different. And my channel 1 controls the cine pan light, which does have 30 pixels instead of 17, so I will need to go ahead and change that one. Now you might notice that my cine pan light is not in a tube orientation in real life, but rather a string of LEDs wrapped around this cake pan light. But for this version of the Touch Designer template, the fixtures will just show up as straight lines for simplicity's sake. And in this case, since the job of this light fixture is to just cast a white light on me, I'm not worried about the way it's mapped on here for this specific fixture. So next we need to position our fixtures. So the positioning is done via a Cartesian coordinate system where you dictate the starting and finishing coordinate for each dimension of each tube. You can actually get a little glimpse of the fixture layout here in this node, and it might be helpful to increase the size of this node to help you. So for example, in our default setting, if you look at tube 1, where the x-axis is the horizontal axis, the y-axis is the vertical axis, and the z-axis is the axis going in and out of your screen, we can see that tube 1 is positioned on the x-axis starting at coordinates of 0.11 and ending also at 0.11. I like to think about this whole screen as being arranged from 0 to 1 in the x and y axis, so 0.11 is just over 10% away from the left side of the screen, and since we want these tubes to be vertical, the starting and ending coordinates are the same. If you wanted to angle your tubes, you'd want your starting x-axis to be 0.11 and your ending coordinate to be 0.5, for example. So you want to follow through this for each fixture until you've got your layout right. These are the exact settings I used for my demo video, and you can see my first fixture here while showing up as a tube of the same size as the rest of them. You can actually see it has 30 pixels instead of the 17 like the others. So there are a couple ways you could look at this whole layout, but I'll explain to you how I did mine because it's pretty important for this media file technique. While you might be encouraged to try and get the most accurate representation of your stage in this virtual model, I found it made more sense to think more about the media file I plan on making instead of the real-world locations of the physical tubes. Here's what I mean. Remember how we laid out the fixtures assuming an X and Y range of 0 to 1? We can take this same assumption that our media file will be broken up in the same way, so let's hop over to Canva now where I designed my media file. So this is Canva, a simple graphic design software that makes it really easy to input shapes and colors on a bunch of different media formats, including video. I used Canva for its simplicity, but to be honest, if I were to do this again, I'd probably just use a standard video editing software like Final Cut Pro in my case, because it is just a little bit easier to nail the timing and do some more specific programming than in Canva. But the concept is exactly the same, so I'll show you how I did this in Canva for now. So I opened up a new video project in Canva and imported my audio file that I want to program my lights to. In my case, I added a click track to my audio file with an 8-bar count in so I knew when to come in during the filming of the video. I'm so sick, but... Now I have 7 fixtures lined up with the 8th fixture off to the side, but I designed this media file as if all the lights were evenly spaced out in a line so that each fixture location that I programmed in Touch Designer should locate the tubes in the middle of these 8 sections. So to do this, I just measured the size of the video project and split the screen up into 8 even sections from left to right, where the leftmost section will be the main side light, and the following 7 sections will represent each tube fixture. Now I can easily take basic shapes and colors and start laying them out on the screen, using the timeline down here to make sure these shapes and colors are happening in time with my audio. So here you can see that I have a white bar along the left side for a large portion of the video because I want my main side light to be on for most of the demo. But here you can see I turn that light off during key moments of the song. Additionally, I start to add little segments to the tubes, and notice I'm not doing full-size rectangles, so only small portions of the tubes will light up instead of the entire tube. Where this method really excels, though, is when you can start to throw in actual video clips and get some really cool textures on your tubes. So I threw in this retro grid clip and this galaxy clip, and so on. So once I finish the video project, you just have to export the video and open it up in Touch Designer on one of these video file nodes, as well as your audio file here in the audio file input. and make sure it's the same file you designed your video around so that all the timing remains synced up. Just click the node and come over here and find your video file. You should see a little screen with your video file here in this node, but if you don't, that probably means the switcher isn't set to the right video file node. So just click the switcher and slide the bar until you find your video file, which in my case is on index 0. The last thing you are going to need to do is tell your rig to accept artnet from Touch Designer. If you are using the Dig Octa boards, which are the boards we are using in the pedal rig, these come pre-flashed with WLED, which is a whole other open source software that I will have to make another video about in the future. But for this video, I'm going to assume you know what WLED is and how to access it on your computer or phone, and you've already set your specific light rig parameters inside of the app. If you don't know how to do this, there are a bunch of good WLED tutorials out there already, and I will certainly upload our own tutorial at some point here if y'all request it. So in order to get Touch Designer to be able to talk to your lighting rig, you just need to go into Config on WLED, Sync Interfaces, scroll down to Network DMX Input, and make sure Type is set to ArtNet and your Start Universe is set to 0. At this point, your rig should now be controllable via Touch Designer. I did do a couple other modifications to the settings within Touch Designer to suit my specific situation, where I wanted to be able to play and restart the timeline between takes in a way that my audio and light show will always be synced up. I also wanted to be able to hear the audio straight out of my computer so I could hear what to play along to during the video. So to make the audio work, we just have to add an audio device node, which you can do by hitting tab on your keyboard to bring up the operators page and adding the audio device out operator here. Click that and place it anywhere on the screen, but I like to put it in the outputs panel. Now simply connect your audio file to this node by grabbing the 2 green dots here to create a path and connecting it to the top input of the audio device operator. Just notice here there are actually 2 places on this node where you can connect the path, and make sure you are connecting it to the input 0 source and not the input 1 volume. As soon as you connect that, you should hear your audio coming out of your speakers by default. If you aren't hearing anything, have a look at the timeline here and see if Touch Designer is playing or not. If you aren't seeing anything moving, just click the screen and hit the spacebar, and that should start everything up again. The other setting I had to change was inside the audio file node. Come over to this drop-down menu and select Play Mode and Locked to Timeline, and then do the exact same step, but with your movie file node. What this does is it makes sure that when you drag your playhead back to the beginning of the timeline, your light show and your audio file will always start at the same point. And even if you want to start somewhere in the middle of the song, you can drag your playhead to anywhere on the timeline and they will stay synced up. Finally, the default project is set to 600 frames down here, which is not long enough, so you'll want to set both of these end numbers to be big enough to fit your whole light show. So in my case, for this 3-minute and 10-second show, I set mine to 25,000, which is more than enough. I feel like there's a way more scientific way to set this to the appropriate length, but again, I'm not very good at Touch Designer yet. Now you should have everything set up and ready to go. Just set up your light rig, make sure it's connected to Touch Designer via ArtNet, and let it roll. When I first tested my Canva video file on my lights, I wasn't too thrilled about how the retro grid and galaxy clips ended up looking on the lights. I guess the details here were just a bit too small, especially on the edgemost tubes. So the lights had this really flickery effect, which looked cool, but it wasn't at all the look I was going for. So I ended up bringing the Canva file into Final Cut Pro to make some more edits. The first thing I did was add a hefty blur to the graphics to hopefully make the lights look a lot smoother, and should also make more segments in the tubes light up at a time, which totally worked. I also fixed a bit of the timing and added some last-minute shapes to the final chorus of the song to add some much-needed impact. After going through this process a few times, I was finally happy with the result as it appeared on the tubes. I'll put a side-by-side of the video of the demo with the media file I put together so you can see exactly how I got the effects and timing I did for my video.
I'm so sick, but you must be twisted. With just 2 peas and an escape pod drifting through space and time. No planets left inside. Barely breathing, starting to see things. I should check if it's the air tank leaking, though you seem well. I'm suffocating still. You waste my mind all the time, but 'cause I'm losing grip of this ship that we're flying. Can you take the wheel? 'Cause I feel like I'm giving up. Like I'm giving up. You know you got me. You know I'm easy. I'll take the plunge if you feel so deeply. But it's true, my love, I might never get back up. You waste my mind all the time, but that's fine, 'cause I'm losing grip of this ship that we're flying. Can you take the wheel? 'Cause I feel like I'm giving up. Like I'm giving up. Floating through the darkness. Tell me there's an art to this. Can you take the wheel? 'Cause I feel like I'm giving up. You waste my mind all the time, but that's fine, 'cause I'm losing grip of this ship that we're flying. Can you take the wheel? 'Cause I feel like I'm giving up.
So that was my process for programming my first demo video using Touch Designer along with a custom-made media file synced up to my music. I really like this method, and I think it makes programming the lights a lot more of an artistic experience than using automation lanes and drawing in each channel for each light, which worked okay for my old rig, but would be basically impossible to do with the new pixel capabilities of this rig. In the future, I will be looking to put together a full set list of media files, which I can then trigger via MIDI notes on my DAW, so I can run my tracks off of external software, but still have a completely synced light show running off of Touch Designer. But until then, let me know what other tutorials you'd like to see. We are working on a bunch of things simultaneously, so I apologize for any delays, but I really appreciate you all for engaging with us on the Discord and on the YouTube channels. We'll see you in the next video.